So our next presentation is really taking it to the next level. So we've heard about the background to Aerospike, how we were founded, what our objectives are, what our product set looks like. And that's great from a theoretical perspective. But I'm delighted now that we're going to see what is it like in reality. So it gives me great pleasure to hand over to Maxime from Criteo. Maxime, over to you.
Thank you, Martin. Okay, welcome everyone. Just first wanted to say I'm really happy to be hosting this Aerospike Summit here in Paris. Thank you to the Aerospike team. Thank you to all of you for coming to our Criteo headquarters. Maxime, I've been working for Criteo for quite some time, currently running the platform teams in Criteo, which provides all the underlying technical layers that are used by all developers in Criteo to build the various Criteo products. So it's quite a lot of teams. Some people here in this room are in this team. Happy to see them listening to this talk. Again, we have more than 900 developers in Criteo, so we are powering a lot of different products and teams and systems. I will just briefly introduce Criteo, if the button works. Yes. So for people that don't know Criteo, this is we are an ad tech company. We do advertising. We started a long time ago, and we got well known for retargeting. Today we diversified and we have a various set of products. I would say yes, we help advertisers, retailers, and publishers activate and monetize audiences everywhere shoppable moments happen. Okay, this is marketing speech. I'm going to explain it a bit more because I don't even understand it myself. So I'm going to explain very briefly how ad tech works for more from the tech perspective, because it's very hard to understand from a marketing perspective. So this is a simplified version, mostly adequate for Criteo, but a lot of ad tech companies do the same. The way we work is, first we need to integrate with our clients or partners, usually retailers, because they are the people that sell things online. To integrate is actually not that easy. There are many type of integrations. We integrate on the web, on apps. We need to get the catalog of product that the retailer is selling. We need to be able to put trackers on web pages and things like that. Actually getting simple things like getting a catalog of products of a retailer is something that's very, very complicated. Some products are changing all the time, sometimes many times per hour. Prices are changing, sometimes dynamically. There's a lot of errors all over the place. So we are running a lot of intelligence, especially AI model, to classify products, to get the right images, to actually crop images the correct way, because eventually all these products end up showing in ads. So yeah, lots of work there, also using the description of products with some language processing models and all of that. So this is the first step, integration. Second step is answering auctions and responding in real time. Again, real time here is real time for the web world. I don't know if there's any high frequency trader here, but this is absolutely not real time for these people. I'm talking about less than 100 milliseconds most of the time, but still quite fast considering the amount of compute we're trying to make to answer and to decide if we want to show an ad and at which price we're ready to pay. Sometimes we are doing an auction with third parties. Sometimes we're doing an auction internally within Criteo. So yeah, quite a lot of work involved here. Third step, once we want to display the ad, let's say we win the auction or we decide we want to display it, we need to display an ad. So that's more straightforward, like display the ad. It could be any type of format. There's a lot of different formats. Again, the formats can be decided through AI and automatically personalized depending on the context, depending on the web page, depending on the user. All of that is also a big set of computation that we are running. Once the ad is displayed, we want to know, has it been actually shown on the browser or the app? Has the user seen it? Has the user clicked on it? Is the user actually buying something after that or not? So this is something we're trying to get. And the last step is basically rinse and repeat, but learn from the previous steps, obviously. So it's all a loop here. We are just basically reusing all this data, training models. We have actually dozens of models running in production, refreshed dozens and dozens of times per day to optimize this loop. So yeah, this is roughly how AdTech works, I would say. Now, the thing that makes it even more complex is there's all this complexity, and the scale of this is actually quite high. So it's not, okay, we are not Google, we're not Meta, but Criteo is not such a big company, and it still has quite a lot of traffic. So just to give you order of magnitude here, we see about 18 million external HTTP requests coming per second on peak time here on our infrastructure. We display more than 120K ads per second at peak time. Every day we see more than 700 million different users. So it's quite a big chunk of the internet that we can see, and that is visiting our infrastructure. And yeah, I talked a lot about products and recommendation engines. We have billions and billions of products in our catalogs, and we need to run recommendation on them. So I'm going to talk about this a bit later, but at the heart of all this real-time computation is our key value storage infrastructure. And this is where it gets even higher. Like you see, we get more than 290 million queries per second at peak time on our key value storage infrastructure. So how do we do that? Well, we have some specificities here compared to other web companies, especially companies of our size or smaller. We run our own hardware. I can start a story about that. So the main reason initially was historical. When we started, Criteo was founded in 2005, sorry. I arrived in 2010. And when Criteo started, there was no public cloud available, especially in Europe. Criteo started here in Paris. Then over time, every time we looked at possibilities to switch to a public cloud, we realized that we were way cheaper, and we were basically managing our own infrastructure. We were more independent and cheaper than public cloud. So we stayed, and we actually gained that expertise, which we think now is a key asset and a competitive advantage. We are running globally now, so quite a lot of servers and running in different continents. And the other specificity, because not a lot of big web companies run this stack, is we are running on C#. So we migrated C# to .NET Core running on Linux containers, which is also quite, I would say, unusual. And it's working well for us. I can explain also why. Very simple. The two technical co-founders of Criteo are from Microsoft. So all this big infrastructure, big number of servers, big numbers of everything, just to display, small UIs for marketers around the world. And you're going to tell me, what a lot of crap, right? Why are you all sitting here thinking this is going to be a conference about sustainability? And I'm just like adding servers and saying having a lot of traffic is good. Well, it's a good question, and we've actually been thinking about this for years. Criteo is very invested in that, and it's true that having all this hardware has an environmental impact, a big one. When you look at our electricity consumption, it's quite high. It's been growing, and we've managed to get some efficiencies over time. But this is very much a concern for us too. So this is something we've been tracking for a long time, and we've invested in. As you see, we managed to reduce our electricity consumption of all our data centers since 2020, despite the fact that our traffic has increased 4 times. So that's quite a lot of improvement there. Well, there were lots of ways to do this. And there's better than that. This is our electricity consumption. But when you look at our CO2 emissions from this electricity consumption, it's down to 0. So you're going to ask me, that's probably a trick, right? How did you do that? Well, it's true, there are some tricks. I'm gonna be honest. Well, first, we did multiple things. First thing is we work with vendors. We try to get more efficient hardware. We try to get them to provide, basically more efficient hardware, both on the server stacks, the data center provider, and the networks. The network stack too is actually important. The other trick, which is quite a big one for the CO2 emission, is we're buying certificates. We have to be honest here. It's not fully sustainable. The reality is that some of our data centers are in locations where it's literally impossible to buy low carbon electricity. So we buy certificates. The third one is relocation right sizing, is about optimization of our capacity planning, making sure we reuse servers, we use them for a longer time. We move them when we need to switch to a new location. We actually densify the racks, and we did all of these efforts. And the last one, because this is a conference about Aerospike, right? I'm not just going to talk about sustainability at Criteo. The last one was about all of our software architecture optimization, especially one big one that we did over the last 3 years is a big migration to Aerospike as our main key value storage infrastructure. I'm going to go a bit into that journey here, talking about a bit more about Aerospike, a bit less about Criteo and CO2. So this started in 2020. We've been actually, even before that, we've been looking for some alternatives to our key value storage solution. As you can see here, this is our stack. Today, it hasn't changed that much, except for the key value storage part. It's mostly accurate, which shows that it's quite robust. And I'm going to focus more on the real-time apps and the key value storage. Most of our real-time apps are C# services. Scala is actually a much small minority and not growing much. And most of our main storage that is backing this real-time app system used to be Memcached and Couchbase. Memcached, as you probably all know, is quite old and works quite well. It's an in-memory data store. It doesn't have any distributed mechanism. Everything is client-based. And we started using, actually, when I arrived at Criteo, so in 2010. Works super well as it's in-memory and simple. It's super efficient. A bit after that, we wanted to be able to persist data from Memcached. So we looked at possibilities. At the time, it was called Membase. Then it evolved into Couchbase. We use Couchbase basically as a persisted Memcached. Couchbase is able to talk to the Memcached protocol, so it was very simple to do. And what we did was a bit tricky is we told our clients, our C# clients, to talk to Memcached by default. And whenever Memcached was not available, for example, because it being rebooted, a node was being rebooted or anything like that, we had Couchbase as a fallback. Reason being that Couchbase could not do sub-millisecond reads all the time. So this was the situation in 2020. And these were our constraints when we were looking for possible alternative for Memcached and Couchbase. Well, as you know, we had quite a big data set. I'll be also honest, 300 terabytes is very small if you're talking about big data. We have way more data in our Hadoop cluster, but it's quite big when you're trying to get very, very high throughput and latency on this. We had a worldwide scale. Again, we are not replicating everything worldwide, but we have some replication within continents that is quite demanding. Lots of traffic, I mentioned that earlier, 290 million QPS, and some very low latency requirements. So I think Subbu explained very well where Aerospike comes from and why it's used in AdTech. This is the kind of requirements we have here in AdTech. We have some of our most demanding databases, especially the recommendation engine is requiring Aerospike, well, the key value storage system quite a lot. And we have a P99 under 5 milliseconds, which is quite demanding for a database. So why did we pick Aerospike? This is going to be a big surprise to all of you. It's because of performance. So yes, actually, we were surprised. We knew some AdTech companies, including Trade Desk, indeed, that we met the CTO a bit before. We're using it, and Aerospike basically beat all our benchmarks. The trick here was that it was a combination of using Aerospike and using new NVMe hardware that made us get basically Memcached speed on persisted storage, which was like awesome for us because we didn't need to have these 2 layers of Memcached and Couchbase. Why is it that performant? I think Subbu explained it way better than I will. So yeah, it's basically optimized for Flash, which was quite unique, which is quite unique still today. When you know that most of the other, well, not all of them, but most of the other NoSQL databases are based on optimization for rotating disk, like log structure merge trees and all of this kind of approach. So yeah, quite stable, especially when doing rebalancing. So very, very high performance, which was perfect for us. Now, We also tested that during our benchmarks, but we had some, well, we've been positively surprised once we started to do the rollout, is that it's super robust, very reliable. There's a Kubernetes logo here just to sidetracking a bit. All of our storage, real-time storage infrastructure is hosted on Kubernetes. So that was a requirement from day one anyway I mean, we didn't deploy Aerospike without Kubernetes. So we worked also a lot on the operator along with the Aerospike team here. And it works out of the box. It's running in production, no incident at scale. We didn't have to do a lot of tuning. What's key here is we had a lot of issues with Couchbase during the rebalancing. You know, we have this thing, since we are running on, well, it's not just because of bare metal, it's because we have local attached disks, so we are running our bare metal servers with obviously a local attached NVMe. What you want to do when you have machines like that is you want to update them frequently. So you need to reboot them frequently just for like normal security patches, upgrade kernels and things like that. And when you do that, you kind of need to move the data around, so you need to rebalance. Couchbase was really bad at that. I mean, every time we were doing a rebalance on a cluster, it had a big performance impact. With Aerospike, it has an impact, but much less, which is also pretty impressive. Also, rack awareness is nice to have. And compared to Memcached, obviously, it's a distributed system, and we have persistence. One thing I'm going to sidetrack a bit here is we also managed to reduce our tech debt because we had a custom Memcached driver for C#. That's mostly for historical reason. It was developed a while back. But one thing that is important is when I said we did a 3 years long migration to Aerospike, it was not because we had to migrate dozens and dozens of applications to use Aerospike. It was mostly because we were refreshing our hardware and it takes a while. Because the users didn't have much to do. We are using internally a driver, like an SDK for key value storage that we provide. Actually, some people in this room are responsible for it. And the nice thing with this is that we have a level of indirection, an interface basically, that we can configure it to point to Memcached or Aerospike or something else if we want to. Meaning developers do not need to change their code, almost. There may be some special cases, which made us very, very efficient in doing this migration to Aerospike. So having some internal shared library is also a very good positive point if you're doing this kind of migrations, just in case. This was a small side topic. So yeah, coming to closer to the conclusion here, as Subu said earlier again, we did quite a lot of reduction here. Going back to our sustainability topic, lots of data, well, data now is less replicated thanks to using this technology, and way, way less servers. So also, I'm going to say I cheated a bit earlier when I say our CO2 emissions are down to 0. Not just with the renewable electricity certificate trick, but also because I only focused on electricity consumption. But our data center CO2 emissions are not just from electricity, it's also from buying hardware. So having less servers is not just spending less on electricity, it's also spending less on CO2 emissions to produce the hardware you buy. We see here from our estimations is that more than 30% of the CO2 emissions of our data centers is hardware. So yeah, racks, servers, switches, all of that, cabling. So this is something that's it's very hard to estimate. This is an estimation because it's very hard to get information from actual vendors of okay how much CO2 they produce, because themselves have like hundreds of different vendors they need to query, and yeah, this industry is learning how to evaluate the CO2 emissions of their hardware, and it's actually pushed a lot through the industry, and the big cloud providers are pushing the same to most of the hardware vendors in the industry, so it's helping. So yeah, we reduce the number of servers, which means we are buying less servers, which means less CO2, not just electricity, which is also good. To conclude, very simple. I think there's one thing if you want to make things a bit more sustainable, especially in your company and your infrastructure, is to optimize. Well, that was obvious, right? There's also another thing, and that is where I'm a bit, I would say not being 100% honest is the reason we did all that was not just because of CO2, but because we were saving a lot of money doing that. And this is where it gets good, right? Where your sustainability, your environmental impacts and costs are aligned. You want to reduce costs, it will reduce your environmental impact. So why not do it? Yeah, just do it. There are some cases where it gets a bit trickier. For example, if you need to buy more expensive hardware because it has less impact on CO2. This is where it gets a bit tricky. But yeah, fortunately here, this journey was really nice because we optimized both costs and CO2 emissions. I'm going to end with one thing. I said it's all good and perfect, but we have a lot to do. We are still not there yet. Let's not think everything is perfect. So I think we are one of the first AdTech companies to commit to SBTi targets. So we have set some targets that we're committed to for 2030. And 3 of the big targets impact our data center footprint, just so you know. Well, the first one, easy, we're already doing it through certificates, but we are committing to keep doing it until 2030. The second one is way more difficult. It's about scope 1 emission, meaning our direct energy related CO2 emissions, which is basically electricity from data centers and offices, and gas also, if you have gas heating or whatever in the offices. So we commit to reduce that by 42%, which means we need to find ways to reduce our electricity consumption or locate our data centers in places where it produces less CO2 to consume the electricity or things like that. So yeah, lots to do there. And the third one is going to be the most difficult. I mentioned about CO2 emissions produced by buying hardware, producing hardware. We commit to reduce that impact by 30% by 2030, which means we either need to buy less hardware or find hardware that's more sustainable and produces less CO2 emission, keep hardware for longer. We've been doing that, we're pushing. We went from 3 years a while ago to 5 years to 6 years, and we're actually one of the leading companies owning hardware and trying to amortize it for a longer period to optimize both costs and emissions, obviously. So yeah, this one will be hard, especially because vendors need to help us, need to provide us with solutions, with sourcing better hardware with less emission. So yeah, just wanted to say things are not done, but I think there's a lot we can do as engineers in the tech world to improve our emissions here. I want to thank you. I think we may have time for a question if there is any. Yes. Yeah, sorry.
Do you have any information concerning the return on investment of the project?
It depends. Well, yes, for the cost part, we do, but honestly, I don't remember the number. It was a few years ago when we started. For the CO2 emission, we don't. It's very hard to know exactly because there's a lot of factors in place. For example, we replaced hardware, and some of the previous hardware, we keep using it for other use cases, so it's not that easy to evaluate. Another question? Yes, no? Otherwise,
Maxim, I have a question.
Yes.
You have a tremendous number of servers, and you've explained the journey of why you have so many servers. Where does the cloud fit into the future for Criteo?
Good question. So first, we have some cloud footprint. I didn't mention it here. Mostly coming from acquisitions of some companies that were cloud-based and are still cloud-based because for various reasons, we think it's a good fit. I would say right now, we still believe that the majority of our infrastructure on-premise is the right fit, mostly because it's a very good competitive advantage in terms of economics, basically. Not sure if that answers your question or...
It does. Thank you.
Well, we can discuss at length about that, but there's a lot of trade-off. Well, you can see lots of new services being available on cloud where we have to build everything ourselves. We are using a lot of existing technologies like Aerospike or other technologies or open source stuff. But yeah, it requires, we cannot just use a new service that is available on AWS, which is the biggest trade-off we have to make. Every time we look at it, we think it's still the right bet, but we are always challenging ourselves here.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, if no more question, I will be also at the break anyway, if you want to talk to me.
Maxim,
Thank
that was
you.
a great presentation. Thank you very much.